And as I know, and so I've become chairman of the commission. I will rule with impunity.
Oh,
You
Lord.
should fear.
Let us pray.
So we signed a letter thanking Mr. Bush for his service. He was a great chairman. He was always very genial and listened to people, and he's going to be a hard act to follow. The Architectural Review Board is a 9-member board appointed by the City Council, and we serve on a voluntary basis without compensation. Our procedure for conducting business is the petitioner for each item will be asked to come forward, state your name for the record, and present your request. The board will then ask any questions they may have. Anyone wishing to speak to the proposal from the audience will be asked to come forward and state their opinion. If there are opposing viewpoints, each side will have 10 minutes to speak. Once your request is heard, the board's decision is rendered and you may leave the meeting. However, if you have questions for staff, please wait until the end of the meeting or the following day. Once public testimony and discussion for a particular item is concluded, members of the board will deliberate and render the decision. Members with a personal or financial interest in any request are required to recuse themselves from voting. All decisions of the Architectural Review Board are final. Aggrieved parties may appeal a decision to the board to the City Council within 15 days. Petitioners may also appeal the board's decision to the Circuit Court within 30 days of the meeting. We have 6 members present. It takes, ma'am?
Cedric is walking.
Cedric just walked in the door.
6.5.
6.5 people present. We almost have 6 people present. 7 people present. It takes 5 votes to pass a motion. Because of the number of members present, you may, if you'd like to delay your request, please let us know at the time the request is announced. Our board members are Cedric Campbell, Elizabeth Brown, Barrett Penny, Willie Welch, John Hayden, John Foshee, David Payne is absent, and Katie Williams. Thank you. If when you come forward, adjust the microphone to your height and speak into the microphone so that everyone can hear. This is a lovely room, but I don't find the acoustics are especially good for understanding people's conversation. Our planning control staff are Christy Anderson. Christy, enthusiastically raise your hand. Thank you. Paula Richardson, thank you. And Russell Stringer, who is our city urban forester. Thank you, Russell. Thank you. All right. Do we have any additions or corrections to the minutes of the last meeting? All right, if there are no additions or corrections, Paula, they are approved as submitted to the board. Our first item is Brian Aspinwall, Garden District.
Hey now, I'm Brian Aspinwall. We got a tree growing into the porte cochere. The tree needs to be removed so the brick column can be rebuilt.
And it's a
This is a
blackberry tree? Is
Popcorn.
popcorn.
Popcorn tree. There are no friends of popcorn trees on this board, I believe.
That's what I've heard. You know, the flowering pear or maybe a dogwood with the shade.
Not a Bradford pear. but-
Not a Bradford pear.
Okay, but a regular.
Don't
pear.
care for replacing it next year.
All right. Any further discussion from the board?
Mr. Stringer, you okay with the flowering pear that he's proposing?
No, not okay with the flowering pear. Those things are just as invasive as the popcorn trees are.
Okay.
There needs to be another species. Y'all typically approve canopy trees for these type of things.
I mean, whatever tree, it makes no difference to me. The backyard's pretty well shaded. Japanese maple. What do you like? I was looking for something flowery and give some color.
If he wants to work with me on the species and
I'll
the
take any
placement of it,
recommendation
that's
and plant
fine.
that.
I'm
That's no
happy with
problem.
that.
Okay. So you're open to working with the urban forester on,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He actually came out maybe a year ago and looked at the popcorn.
Do we have anyone from the audience who wants to speak to this project? You've done a good job. Your neighbors are silent.
Madam
We're
Chair,
getting there.
Madam Chair, the spring has sprung, so tree replacements at this point need to occur,
Fall.
fall, winter of 2018.
Do I have a motion for this project?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that petitioner work with urban forester on tree species and caliper and time of year for placement.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Your motion passes.
Thank you.
And we've been joined by David Payne. Thank you, Mr. Payne.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me join you.
Certainly. All right, the next project is Cindy Clark, St. Charles, Capitol Heights.
Hi, I'm Cindy Clark, and I'm asking to have approval to replace my front porch steps as well as the steps that go from the lawn down to the sidewalk.
From looking at this, you're reducing the rise and run. You're changing the rise and run to be something a little more friendly.
Yes, the stairs have shifted, so the rise and run are not even, and it's very dangerous for my 80-year-old mother.
It looks like it would be dangerous for me. The only comment I have on that personally is I think that our handrail you proposed is lovely, but it's going to be almost impossible to maintain. A clear finish on wood like that, exposed to the elements, is just going to be it's just going to be hard. If you want to use a wooden handrail, I'd suggest that you paint it, and even that's going to be difficult to maintain. Other people may have different ideas. It's pretty, I like it, but I'm just warning you ahead of time.
Does that mean that you wouldn't approve it?
No, it doesn't mean I
Okay.
wouldn't approve it. I was just offering advice.
No, I
Sometimes
appreciate
not a
that.
good idea.
I got the idea from an inn on a coastal area that I'm sure gets lots worse weather than we do, and I think it has a marine finish on it. Yeah.
You may also want to check the species of wood. It might be more of a mahogany or a tighter, heavier grain than, say, pine or oak even. This, the type of wood you use.
Is there any further discussion here? Does anyone from the audience have discussion on this project? Ms. Clark, you too have done a good job with your neighbors. What can I say? I'm ready to hear a proposal on this.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Yep. Any further discussion? I don't think so. All in favor? Opposed? Go and do good things.
Thank you.
Alex Whitley, Old Cloverdale.
Alex Whitley. I am proposing, previously with our previous addition and construction, we put a large apron on our driveway that's exposed pebble concrete, and the rest of it from the apron on forward, just beyond that gate, is a pebble driveway. And we put up a basketball goal, and I've rented a tamper and gone through that process, but the kids can't dribble on it. So I'm proposing that we do the same thing that you see there on the apron to the rest of the driveway.
Any comments? This is going to make a difference in your drainage in the backyard.
It all slopes.
This is
yeah.
in the advice category again. Is it all sloping towards the street? All right, but you know, stuff that was used to be absorbed by the ground is going to be out there. All right. You might consider putting a trough drain right at where you go into your garage to keep water from getting in there if it rains hard.
Okay.
But
We've got gutters there,
Okay.
and you know, one possibility, I guess, is the downspouts on either side of the driveway could exhaust that.
yeah. All right. Any further discussion by the board? Any discussion from the audience? Here are people who are doing their job before they come to the meeting. Yes. All right. I'm open to a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the petitioner's request as submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the project should be approved as submitted. All in favor? All opposed?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Celeste Sable, Cloverdale, Idlewild.
How do you do? My name's Celeste Sable, and I'm asking to remove a tree that's in my back door neighbor's yard. I have received their permission. The tree is leaning on a workshop of mine, and I'm trying to get the roof repaired because there's a hole in it leaking water, and need to get your permission to take down the tree.
And this is a hackberry tree, correct?
That's what I've been told.
It looks terrible, frankly. And I'm the only hackberry tree lover on the board, and I don't see anything that we could do to save this tree either.
That's a relief.
It is leaning up against the building. Is there any discussion from the audience about this project?
Ms. Saber, the new tree is going to be in your yard or your neighbor's yard?
That's going to depend on Russell. I have trees to the right of my workshop.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have to be in the same place, obviously, so we can still work on the location.
Okay.
We had somebody who wants to say something behind you.
Pardon?
Come to the microphone, please.
Oh, okay, excuse me.
I'm Jane Burris, President of the Cloverdale Idlewild Association, and we don't have any problem with this request.
All right, good. Thank you. Is there any further discussion from the board? Can I have a motion? It was hard to hear you.
I've never been told that.
Crank them up.
Well, now that you've set up, and yeah, it's all right.
Move to approve subject to Ms. Saber working with Mr. Stringer for tree replacement and location.
She said she had permission from the owner of the tree.
John.
And you do have permission from the owner of the tree?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you add to be planted, if it's removed, to be planted, replaced by the end of the next planting season as part of your motion?
Yeah, that tree needs to be replaced by the end of the next planting season.
By the what?
The end of the next planting season, Mr. Stringer can let you know, trees need to be planted at a certain time, during a certain time of year.
Right.
Move to approve subject to Ms. Babel working with Mr. Stringer concerning location, species, and to be replaced during the upcoming planting season.
We need a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? All right.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thank you.
Jeremy and Lauren Vincent, Old Cloverdale.
My name is Jeremy Vinson. This is my wife Lauren. We're redoing a house on Woodward Avenue. We're asking for permission to take down a pecan tree so we can put a pencil driveway in, because right now there's no driveway to the house. And we've already gotten with Russell about taking the tree down and what we're going to put in and all that kind of stuff.
Is there any discussion from the board? Do we have anyone from the audience to speak to this project?
Darby Forrester, representing the Old Cloverdale Association. This house has been an eyesore in our neighborhood for a while, and we certainly appreciate them taking on the remodeling of it, and we have no objection.
May I have a motion?
Move to approve as submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Go.
Thank you.
This house can only improve. Scott Taylor, Cloverdale, Idlewild.
Good evening. I'm Michael Stroop with Harrison Atkins Real Estate on behalf of Mr. Taylor here. What we are proposing is basically some modifications to the driveway parking area. We'd recently taken out some dead and real nasty foliage, shrubbery, trees, etc. around the quadplex here at 3179. Our plan to go back in with the existing parking area is approximately 46 feet deep from the edge of the wear surface on the street, 36 feet wide at the widest point at the back, giving us 4 parking spaces, again, as this is a quadplex. Our purpose and plan to retain the gravel to keep it from infiltrating into the turf is using cross ties that'll be adhered down and fastened in place by 3/8 to 1/2 inch rebar driven down into the ground to keep the gravel, which will be number 57 gray gravel, retained inside the cross ties. We've also had some discussion, and we're looking to put in 3 2.5 inch caliper tulip poplars. They're probably going to be anywhere from 10 to 12 feet planted height on the end of the driveway, if you will, to accommodate our previous removal of the foliage that was existing. The pictures shown are neighboring driveways. It says adjacent gravel. They show very well a good illustration of what the neighboring properties look like. Thinning gravel, possibly less than desirable maintenance here, grass coming up through, etc. Ours currently is in the same situation, and probably a little worse than these actually, but I feel like when we come in with our cross ties, get rid of the existing turf, put in the new gravel, trees, I think we should have a real nice finished product.
Any discussion?
Madam Chair, it says this item's a violation. The trees were removed before, I guess the petitioner submitted the application. Is that right?
That is correct. That is what we understand. Yes, sir.
How did that happen?
I'm sorry?
How did that happen? Did you not know to submit it?
It was simply an oversight on the owner's behalf.
Who is the owner?
Scott Taylor, the owner with Odyssey Acquisitions. I'm here because he's out of Texas, and I just told him I would come in and sit in on this meeting tonight, convey to you guys our plans. We definitely do apologize for taking those things down prematurely. And, like I said, we're asking for your leniency on this remediation effort to try to bring this effort up and above and beyond, if you will, status quo of the surrounding properties. I feel 100% sure that with his efforts and the ideas he's conveyed to me on wanting to do the renovation on the property, interior, exterior, et cetera, that he will not fall short of overbuilding, making it really shine. And again, with the plan that he's proposed here, I feel like that's in line with his idea on the structure itself.
On my review, I live in this neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
And I was contacted, the trunks were on the ground.
Correct.
And I walked over there on a Saturday, and I got to say, that cedar tree had probably been there over 100 years.
Correct.
Now, Russell, you went out and surveyed the land, didn't you? I think a couple of those trees were close to a fence. Am I correct?
Yeah, and what I saw as far as significant trees, there's a hackberry involved that had some decay issues and some other things, but the cedar tree was probably the most significant tree on the lot, and all of the tree was there, so it didn't have any problems. That's the one I don't know if y'all would have deemed it appropriate to remove it.
And that's the one its location, I don't think I would not have voted to let you take that tree down, that cedar.
Understood.
I mean, I understand you have an out-of-state, you're just here doing his bidding, I guess.
Could I interject for a moment?
Sure.
And offer a point? It doesn't, according to Mr. Campbell, and he is right, constitute our lack of permission. And, we do accept that. The intent behind the removal of what was removed, with it being, again, a quadplex, was to provide a little bit more potential additional security. Visibility, vehicular traffic going in and out of the property, should there be any single individuals there, should there be any female occupants there, et cetera, just to really try to open it up and create a more secure feeling for potential tenants, visitors, et cetera. That was the intent behind the effort.
Do you know when Mr. Taylor acquired this property?
Off the top of my head, we closed on it sometime October, November, approximately 2017.
I know it was owned at one point by Starling Properties. Is that who you acquired it from?
The exact seller, I'm not sure. The owner at that point. I would be glad to get you guys any of that information, though.
And I guess you weren't told that this quadplex was located in a historic district, and if you wanted to remove any trees over 12 inches in diameter?
We were told nothing of that nature. No, sir.
Yeah. Well.
Go ahead.
I'm looking at your photograph, your aerial site plan here. Can someone put it up on the screen? Okay, it looked like the property was on a corner, or there was a little narrow street or driveway between it and the next house. And I can't really be sure what I'm looking at here. Are you jamming your, as that may not be the right word, are you placing your driveway up very close to your neighbor's property and leaving a great distance between it and are you at 3179, or are you the white roofed house that we're seeing here on that photograph, that aerial photograph?
It's the 3179.
3179, okay.
And the access to the driveway is where there is currently gravel to access the backyard.
There's already a driveway there. Okay.
The access is off Hadley. You see Hadley Street on that pic, David?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you enter the driveway off of Hadley. The quadplex faces Norman Bridge Road.
Yeah, I was just remarking how close he had put it to his neighbor's property rather than moving it inbound a little bit closer to the quadplex itself.
There's another tree and an existing fence post in the way of moving that access point closer. Unless you want them to cut down another cedar tree, that would be in the way of shifting
So there's
that
a cedar
over.
tree then in this space between the proposed cross-tie edge and house. I mean, I don't really see it. But
Mike, can you back up one? That bottom photo, there's a metal fence post and a cedar tree on the left-hand side.
Where is that with respect to our photograph of the site plan here?
Well, that gravel there is the proposed access, I think, that they have drawn on there.
When I see a dimension 20 feet and then I see a 6-foot angle and another 20 feet, I'm trying to find, and I see what looks like some trees, but they look like they're a pretty good distance from the driveway, or am I missing something here?
1 inch equals 20 feet. It looks like, with the 1 inch to 20 foot scale, that at least you can see the canopy of that cedar tree is probably within 10 feet of the proposed driveway.
Is it just to the right of that dimension line that says 46 feet down at the bottom?
Yes.
But what I see looks like it's,
I think there were a couple of trees there in that aerial. So there's a little blob that's a little farther over, closer to that driveway, that I think is the tree that's still standing there.
okay.
It's difficult to read.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, 5 feet, do we have, is he, I guess he's within his limits to put it that close to his neighbor's property. Okay, okay. That's another driveway. All right, okay. Okay, okay. Hard to tell that from. I think I see it now.
Let me ask Mr. Stringer, do you think any of the putting in additional gravel, whatnot, would endanger any trees that are still there?
Not at this point. They're not there.
Well, maybe a few there, but can't do any, well.
The trees left at this point are the trees beside the house, between the house and Hadley Street. All those are cedars.
When I went by, I was just staring at the beautiful cedar trunk laying on the ground, so
Yeah, that
didn't really notice.
So I'm surprised that I'm the one that's bringing this up. But, I mean, where is the hue and cry from my fellow board members about the violation of cutting down a 100-year-old cedar tree? We may have to have you arrested or something, for breaking the law.
Believe me, I'm very upset about it, Mr. Payne, and I'm going to I would not have voted to allow them to take down a cedar tree.
So now we have to look at an after-the-fact, as usual, situation here. Are we going to suggest any kind of penalty on these folks? What's our potential, Ms. Anderson? I forget.
I always forget.
Well, you're not really in a position to exact a penalty. The question is, would you have approved it if they'd asked for permission first? And if you would, is the proposed replacement plan sufficient? So To some extent, that's a decision of, is the long-term restoration of the tree canopy a sufficient remedy to the situation? If you don't feel that you would have approved it and you don't care what the replacement plan was, then it's still a violation and we'd file a complaint in court, which would be difficult to have served on an out-of-state owner.
Well, the cedar tree is a tree that's a remnant of an antebellum house that was in that neighborhood, in that section. And that's the only thing that we've got left of the landscape in that particular house. And I certainly would not have approved cutting down the cedar tree. The other two trees, I know that mock orange trees are a nuisance and throw a lot of things down, but they too were only planted in antebellum times, usually as fence rows. So I would have considered both of those trees significant and not to be removed. The hackberry tree can certainly be replaced by, no one would replace a hackberry tree, but you could replace a hackberry tree or another tree that would provide some shade. But the other two trees I would consider historic, and they should have been retained.
Right.
And I wouldn't have approved the proposal.
So, Ms. Brown and, I'm sorry, Mr. Hayden?
No, I was going to ask, was there an oak tree? It says 4 trees and it lists cedar, hackberry, mock orange. Was there a 4th tree that was cut down?
Were there 2 hackberries?
Was there an oak?
I think so.
2 hackberries.
Okay, 2 hackberries. Okay. Because I know there were some that were close to a fence. I think they were
I think
almost.
those were on the fence line,
Now, which ones were those?
the hackberries.
Okay. Hackberries.
There was other stuff there that didn't meet the 12-inch diameter
Right.
limit, so that's,
Well, the 2 I saw that were up very close to the fence, they would have met the standard, I know.
yes,
That's why I thought there were 4, so there were 2 hackberries?
yes.
Okay.
So again, if I could, what I'm hearing a lot is, and I certainly appreciate it, having a background in landscape irrigation, once holder of an SLP license myself, working on a lot of plans that Mr. Stringer's run through his office. Possibly could we look then into, in lieu of 1 or more of the proposed tulip poplars coming back in, of course, Mr. Stringer's recommendations would take cue and precedence here. Any kind of arborvitae, any kind of species of arborvitae, cedar, or other similar evergreen to match, but possibly due to the objection or objectives of the owner and what he's trying to do to accommodate the possible tenants, and of course, the property and the investment, possibly place this similar species in a different location. Again, the tulip poplar, I mean, yes, crepe myrtles, live oaks, the pittosporums, the hawthorns, hollies, etc., all do flow well with the neighborhood and the historic landscape that everybody loves about Cloverdale. I don't know of how many poplars I've seen, but if we could, Mr. Stringer, your thoughts there, or board?
Well, let me ask you another question here. This is a pretty gruesome looking piece of property, and I think that the owner of this property needs to have developed a professional landscaping plan that we can actually read and understand and see clearly what is proposed. Because what we're hearing is just not, I don't think, satisfactory to me, at least. I think we ought to see a landscaping plan done by a landscape architect, and that would, in lieu of a penalty or taking y'all to court or whatever, would suggest that if a plan could be presented that this board found acceptable, then we could move forward with the development of the property. Now, is any part of the house itself being presented to the board for us to review or make comments about? Are there any renovations planned to the house?
There are no structural interior or exterior discussions at this time.
That's a shame.
Ultimate, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I said that's a shame.
Right.
That
Now,
is
well,
one-
those are in the works, and he's chomping at the bit to get those done. This being the fish on the grill, so to speak, it was his effort that and his desire that we get this remedied prior to pursuing anything further to ensure your satisfaction. Again, nothing is guaranteed, but from working with the guy as long as I've worked with him, structural and landscape, again, as Mr. Campbell pointed out, and I'll point out again, we did not ask for permission on the front end. There's no way we can rectify that now aside from, trying to comply. And again, ultimately the intent is to better the property, better the surrounding area. It's his desire, though, that we present something that you guys like and that satisfies and maybe magnifies the entire idea of the area.
Well, and I agree with Mr. Payne in that, and I understand he wants to present something that we like. We don't really have a plan. If there were a landscaping plan, actual drawings, not only what species you're going to replace these trees with, but what's going to be their location, and working with Mr. Stringer, I think that might go some way into moving this project along.
Right. All right, well, that being said, then, this ever being my first time standing on this side of the podium here, well, and obviously never been on your side either, but at the same time, could we get some sort of extension, possibly come back down here? If possible.
Can we move?
I will say I'm sorry.
I was just asking Ms. Anderson. We've done this before in other cases.
Right.
You
Delay
could table
ruling
it
on-
for,
Ma'am.
you could table it for additional drawings or plans to be submitted for the next meeting.
Okay. And that's what I'd like to do tonight, Mike, is move to table this discussion and vote on this project until you get with your customer.
Right.
And relay to him what we have said. We would like plans done by a professional indicating location, species. It would also be nice to have a cleaner look at this driveway. I know sometimes it's not easy to do, but if you got someone that's out there taking measurements, whatnot, where to put trees, they could probably sketch out a location of the driveway.
That being said, before you guys vote, if I could offer one more thing, and this is just me trying to accommodate and asking for your, I guess, lenience here as much as possible on the submittal of something drawn by Goodwin Mills and K. Wood or any other professional firm here in town, landscape architecture. I agree. Nothing further needs to be said about the presentation of this, and I am ultimately let down that I'm looking at this on the screen in front of you. I could draw this to scale and have it, I think, presented to where Mr. Stringer and every one of you would clearly understand what's going on, and would also be willing to take suggestions from he and any of you on alternate species and their locations, trying to ultimately minimize his expense here.
Well,
I don't think we care about that.
I was going to say,
Right.
his expense is not any of our concern, and you can tell him that.
Right. No, I understand. But just a thought.
And I'll again express my grave concern that someone buys property in an historic district, and one of the first things they do is they come in and they start chopping down cedar trees that have been here more than 100 years. And I'm not complaining to you, but you're the one standing here while he's in Texas doing whatever he
Right, I
does.
understand. Right.
So with that, I will make a motion.
We still need
We have not had any
public
discussion
sorry.
from the
I'm gonna-
audience, so we need to
I'm gonna
ask for
stop
comments
talking
from the
now.
audience.
See what happens when you turn the microphone on?
You should. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak to this project?
Charlie Colvin with the Cloverdale Idlewild Association, the CIA, and I don't want to draw this out, but there is a little history with this property. A number of years ago, if you look at the front of that building, there was a porch, and it fell off. It got damaged, and it has never been replaced. So the property doesn't look real presentable. It's better than it was. They've cleaned it up some. And the lot is a corner lot, and it is not particularly attractive. I can't speak to a tulip poplar tree, or we, the CIA, can't speak to tulip poplars versus another cedar or whatever I'll leave that up to Russell and people who know better than that. But we're faced with the thing that we always hit. We've got an owner in Texas and a local contractor who's working the problem, and no matter the mail-outs from the city, and we pass out at least twice a year a notice that it's historically designated and what that means, but it just doesn't penetrate, and that's a little frustrating. We would like there to be some kind of a fine that could be imposed on something like that. So we want that at least in today's notes. We would absolutely endorse waiting and get an actual site plan for landscaping, maybe not just this, but some curb appeal in the front of the building. The only other thing that we would mention is we want to be sure that those stumps get ground down. People have a tendency to cut trees down, and then you have this stump that stays there. So whatever you decide, we'd like to include making sure that the stumps are ground. And that's about it from the CIA.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Hi, I'm Sarah Churchman, president of Montgomery Trees, and we would hope that you would deny the petition for the removal of these trees and possibly send it to municipal court where there could be some punitive fines, like Charlie said as well. That's it. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to point out that this piece of property is really more than just about planting a few trees. We have an out-of-state developer that wants to come in and use it as a source of income, and he's entitled to do that. I think we're entitled to suggest that he prepare and present to us not only a landscape plan, but an exterior improvement view. I mean, Mr. Colvin makes a great point that had already struck everybody up here of how ridiculous those enclosed porches look in their current state. And I think that this doesn't need to be a multi-step process. It needs to be done all at one time. So I would move that we do absolutely reject this proposal and suggest they go start over.
A second? Do we want to table this?
Well, I was going to ask, if we reject it, they would probably have to refile everything to come back before you. Is that correct, Ms. Anderson? I mean, my suggestion.
If you deny it, the violation stands, and that means we go to court. And you've got to say to reason. Because they can't, I mean, you've taken action on what was submitted. Now, they could resubmit something later, and if we ended up in court, we could delay court action. But if you want to table it for
we need to give them a chance
a better
to
plan,
present an acceptable solution.
Then maybe instead of rejecting it, you need to table it.
And that was my thinking, because even if we table it, they bring back something and we don't think it's acceptable, we still have the option of rejecting the plan. It goes forward to municipal court. It's also, they're asking for more than one thing. We could, grant this, deny that. So right. I know we have a motion and a second on the floor, correct?
No.
No, we don't.
We do not. All right. I move that.
We already have a motion.
I'll rescind my motion.
All right. Hate to ask that. What was, sir? What, Rev?
What about, it says it's previously had gravel parking in the back, so can they work on the parking? Because I know you all are really, really upset about the trees tonight, but can he go ahead and start on?
No.
No.
Well, there's no one living at the quad right now, is there?
That is correct.
Okay.
The only thing that, as Mr. Welch stated, could potentially bring back some of the curb appeal. And we would be willing to go ahead and proceed with a portion of that if that helps
Well, I really
that's
think,
determined.
I'm agreeing with David. I don't want to piecemeal this. I think it would be best to bring, a landscape plan, any modifications or anything might be done to the outside, bring it to the board. Let's look at it and let's take care of it all at once, and that benefits your client because that way they don't have to keep coming back if something comes up. They got the plan, they can go forward, they know what they got to do. So with that said, I move that we table this application and give the presenter and his client an opportunity to present some landscaping plans, either at the next meeting, work with Ms. Anderson, discuss it with your client. If it's, I don't know, do we have to specify how long we table it, or I know we don't want to just leave it hanging out there.
You can't leave it hanging because part of it involves a violation. If
Okay.
they were just making a petition, it could be whenever, but it's not. So if it's the next meeting, I mean, I'd have to have drawings to get in your packet within 2 weeks.
And I know
End of April would give them a month.
what's our April date?
Deadline is April 2nd, and I think the meeting date is the 24th.
Okay, I move we table this until the April meeting. That would give you early April to get with your client, Mike, and y'all discuss it. You can relay to him what we've said, and be in touch with Ms. Anderson. If it's necessary, maybe we can, hopefully we can get it done, get y'all doing something, and we can.
Can I
make a
reiterate?
decision.
I was going to ask you if I could again reiterate the details of what you are presenting and tabling, or what all we're doing, to make sure I've got the notes and details correct here. I'm understanding a cutoff date of submission to Ms. Anderson on 4/2/18. The next meeting will be here at 4/24. We are looking for, with that packet of submittal documents and plans, an acceptable or inclusive plan for everything, including landscape and all exterior modifications improvements, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
A comprehensive plan of the property, both site and building.
Correct. Right. Site structural. Right.
Sidewalks, walkways, how do I get to the house, where's the parking? And I'm not sure you've got it in a very good spot right now. You just got in a spot out there. And so
It's where the spot was. He
It's where
already
the
had
spot
gravel
was.
there, so.
I know there was an awning at one time. I've lived in that neighborhood 14 years. 16, long time. I know there used to be an awning on the front face of Norman Bridge. It was taken down some years ago in a Starling property. But in any event, I think we spent enough time on
Well,
that.
let me ask you one other question to belabor the fact a little bit longer here. Have the cut trees been removed? And if so, the stumps are still there. Do we need to amend the motion to have them remove the stumps that are now an eyesore?
Oh, I think that should certainly be part of remove them now.
Well, he was
It'd
asking,
certainly be
he was
part of
asking
a.
if there was any work that he could do.
I think removal of those stumps would be part of a landscape plan, like, Mr. Colvin said, don't want to leave stumps out there. For one, just aesthetically, they look bad, and two, it's been my experience, you're going to have bees and other insects that at some point, maybe not this year, but next year, when you'll have somebody walk around, and I've kicked a few stumps in my day and had some bees come out to tell me they didn't like it, so that should be part of any landscaping plan.
So then again, to reiterate, no further work is to commence until we submit and turn in all this, right? And get
Correct.
approval or denial, et cetera, correct?
Correct. Now, if you want to, the deadline for the April meeting is the 2nd. If you get with your client and y'all get on it and you want to submit it before the March meeting.
Deadline for the March meeting is Monday.
This
I
Monday?
think that would be,
I don't think you'll make it.
I'd rather not promise to that, yeah.
No.
Right,
Okay.
right.
All right, do we need a motion to table it?
You do.
And does it need to have all of this stuff in it?
You can table it, subject to the petitioner submitting a fully developed landscape plan as discussed.
And exterior
Yeah,
elevation.
And
four
exterior,
elevations.
any exterior improvements to the building.
Now I'm ready for a motion to table.
I'd like to put that in the form of a motion. Whatever Christie just said. Christie's
Yes.
comment.
Thankfully, I wrote that down. Okay, good.
And I'll second that.
All in favor? Opposed? I'm sorry your first trip to the board has been such a grilling.
Usually not this bad, Mike.
No, it's not a problem. I understand. I do. I completely understand. I appreciate your time tonight. Like I said, and I'm 100% confident we'll work together and get to a remedy that'll be satisfied.
And I'm sure your client's not going to be happy, but tell him it's better to
It's
do
the
it
best
right.
of, it's the best situation we could be in.
Well,
Correct.
he's done it wrong so far.
Right.
He needs to get it right, and I think this is the best
Right.
way for him to get it right.
Right. No, we appreciate your consideration.
Okay.
Please get with Christie on what's anticipated for like windows, roofs, et cetera. If you plan on replacing them, there's guidelines and all that as well. So make
Get with
sure
who on that?
I had spoken to the owner about
Okay.
windows.
Okay.
Since I got his phone number after this happened.
Right. And can I trade direct contact with you? Just so that if I end up back down here in front of you again, it's been pleasurable nonetheless. I mean,
It can only go up from here. It can, no, go. You can only improve your situation now.
right. I like it. I like it. Only go up.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you. John and Erica Tracy.
Move to approve.
Hey, I'm John Tracy, and this is my wife Erica. We are requesting permission to build a deck at the back of our house. 12 by 12 with the treated pine.
And it looks dandy.
Thank you.
Cloverdale Idlewild doesn't do bad stuff now, I got to tell you that. I live there, so I know.
You probably need to be aware that he walks his dog. So if you do anything without coming to the board, he will know it.
There are several people who walk, and they have me on speed dial, so yeah.
You just punch the button and there you are, in trouble already. Is there any discussion from the board? Does anyone in the audience have discussion? May I have a motion?
Move to
Oh, wait,
approve.
I see her now.
Come on, Jane.
Only to say that I'm Jane Burris, President of the Cloverdale Idlewild Association, and we have no objections.
Thank you. Now we're ready for a motion.
Move to approve as submitted.
Second that motion.
All in favor? Opposed? Go and build your deck.
Thank you.
Just in time for the summer.
We hope.
They are nice.
Philip Cameron, Old Cloverdale, 1343, 1347 Felder Avenue.
Looks like he's
Philip?
not here.
Philip with the plastic windows is not here.
Probably heard what happened to Mike. So.
What? All right, Tom Riley, Old Cloverdale, Magnolia Curve.
I believe are you with Home Depot? I am. Tim Riley made the application. I assume you're the local rep?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, you're next.
I hope you submitted the pictures that were part of this. It's actually a home of former Representative David Grimes. Stand over here, I guess. And he has contracted with us to replace some windows at the back of the home that are in poor condition, as you can see. Also creating a lead situation that's peeling lead paint on that house. So what he has contracted with us to do is replace those windows. And he is asking that we use a vinyl product that is a very damp part of his yard. A wooden product would not last very long there. He's he knows that the front of his house, he's on a corner, would require, your wooden windows that we sell those as well. So we have windows that will be compliant with the front, but he's asked for this is a premium vinyl window to replace those, and the grid patterns in the window, it would mimic the grid patterns that were on those windows there. And if you could go back to the picture, that the existing windows are obviously not wood and they're metal of some kind. And I don't believe this to be an original part of the structure. I think this is probably an addition at some point decades ago. And with your permission, I can show you a sample of the window.
Mike, could you go back a couple of pictures? There, thank you.
They look like casements from the 40s or early 50s.
This is actually a moving window. I will take the sash out to give you an idea of what. In the window section, there's different grades of every kind of everything you can imagine. This would be considered a premium window. Okay, and also moving efficient.
And it was my understanding from my correspondence with Tim that the only option on this window is the grid between the glass. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you have other vinyl products with the grid on the exterior of the glass?
No.
Thank you.
Do you have, what kind of product do you have that would have an exterior button? Okay. Okay. And you could get like a clad window in that.
Would we be agreed, would each of us, all of us be agreed that we need buttons on the exterior of the windows? So, just to kind of cut to the chase there, that's a given.
I would think so.
In the neighborhood. So we've got to have an exterior button. And there are fiberglass windows and there are PVC windows that also, as you know, have those on the exterior.
There's another product in between. This is called
Right. I'm not, but the composite window is all of a sudden quite a popular product, and it looks awfully good, and it does have the buttons on the exterior.
So he was of the understanding that in the back of his home, that this would be, satisfactory. I'm just here showing you what we have and, expressing what his convictions were.
And in my discussion with the gentleman that was handling it for Home Depot, I told him that a grid between the glass was not sufficient.
That what now, would you say?
That just having the grid between the glass was not sufficient. That is not something that this board had approved.
We certainly wouldn't be, normally if you were talking about a window replacement on the front or the sides of a historic building and they were historic windows, we'd want them to match, as nearly exactly as we could. But these are obviously wacko replacement windows. No, I wouldn't have put that window on my house in 1956 either.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look appropriate with the neighborhood. There's not many windows like that in this neighborhood. So the configuration is a little less important, but the exterior buttons are. Do we have any comments from the neighborhood?
Darby Forrester, representing Old Cloverdale Association, and we do not believe the windows that were presented would be correct for a historical neighborhood.
All right, thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to deny the request.
You need to provide a reason.
Based on the fact the window doesn't have the exterior buttons to match the windows in the neighborhood.
Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Welch will second, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you for coming.
Now, when I go back to Mr. Grimes, am I understanding that the fabrics window with the external grids would be acceptable?
We'd have to see it. We've not
Yeah.
seen that window before.
All right, thank you.
That's you.
This is the document. Larry. Larry.
All right. Tim Riley? Barrett? Barrett? And this is a house we looked at the last meeting, and we actually discussed the proposal to do what you're presenting today, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
All right. So tell us about it.
So I'm back this month. As you just mentioned, last month the board, approved renovations for the new owners of 728 Felder. During the meeting, it was suggested if we had looked at a double porte-cochere, that was something that the owners are interested in. It was briefly discussed in our meeting and suggested that we go to the Board of Adjustment to request a variance on the east side yard. The current property setback on that side of the yard is 10 feet. We did go to the Board of Variance and received approval on February 15th, to build within 2 feet of the property line. The revised plans in your packet today include a double porte-cochere. It's 11 feet longer, per se, than the previous plan. It also includes an intermediate set of columns. And it's 2 foot 3 inches from the property line to the column base. So we come back this month to request your approval to consider this double porte-cochere.
Couldn't get that any closer to the property line?
It did fit.
That was good.
Well, I think it looks a whole lot. I think it looked nice before, Barrett, but I think it looks very nice now, and I think the homeowners will certainly be glad that they have a double carport.
I know he will.
So what are we doing, Mr. Chairman? Oh, she's on the phone.
Anyone to speak to this, to this request from the audience?
Thank you. Everyone's happy, I assume.
Everybody's happy.
All right.
So may I make a motion that we approve this as presented, these modifications to this home as presented?
You may.
And I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Ben Blanchard, Cottage Hill.
This one's been delayed
All right.
by the petitioner.
And April Hampton, Cottage Hills Annex. April, we know you. You've been here before.
Good evening, I'm April Hampton, kind of losing my voice.
April, how are you tonight?
I'm great. I'm excited about progress. How are you all doing?
We're fine. Tell us what we're here for today.
Okay, so when we first started the renovations, as you know, a balcony was a part of that, wrapped around. It was original to the house. Originally, we actually thought this was a big overgrown bush. Had no idea that it was even a tree until we removed it and got the letter. The guy who was doing the concrete repairs, because it started doing damage, around the edge and on the side, and it had wrapped around that column. And actually, some of the old electrical wire from the pole was caught up in it to the point that when he did cut it, it snapped a pillar, and it had to be rebuilt. I have a picture of that. It completely snapped it. So it was just dangerous, and it was just, you know, you could see that the pillar was green, that it needed to be removed. And again, we thought it was a bush.
So the tree was damaging the house?
Yes, it was. Yeah. And like I said, it had a bunch of electrical wires in it that caused the pillar to break in half, and it had to be repaired. So now that we know it is a tree, I also went ahead and measured the trunk of it before we had it ground. And it was, in certain directions, it was right at 11.5. Some, you know, I guess it had branched off. And the widest point was like 12.5.
Okay.
So, and I do have pictures of the measurement in my phone if you guys want to see that.
And you want to, you have that, and you also want to put a storage building?
Yes, I do.
On the back corner of the property, it looks like.
Yes, next to where you see where the driveway is, an 8x12 shed. I talked to Christy, and I know you guys are talking about like the board and batten look, but I just don't think it would be appropriate for the space, being that most of the lines on the house are horizontal in nature.
And this would be our preference.
The board and batten? Or,
Yes, but
okay.
everybody wants to do, no, this is what we want.
Oh, sure.
That you showed us, and
Okay.
everybody wants to do the board and batten. So.
Okay, yeah, I just think the lines would look better with the house. The only difference would be that that window would be on the opposite side.
Okay.
But we would match the architectural shingles that we have currently on the house that we replaced.
Is there any discussion from the board?
Do you plan on replacing the removed tree with some other element?
I will discuss, I haven't even gotten that. Like I said, when we removed it, we thought removing a big bush that was in the way. So at some point, we do have some plans on doing some really nice landscaping out front. We just have not gotten to that part of it. But I like cypress trees, the tall, skinny ones. So I don't know if that would be appropriate. I was going to plant 2 trees for balance anyways. I just like symmetry. So I will get with.
Yeah, would you be open with, okay.
Sure, of course.
Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak to this project? Oh, here comes Sarah.
Hi, Sarah Churchman, Montgomery Trees. We feel as though that due to the size and age of this tree, after speaking with Russell, he thinks that it may have actually been original to the property, that the petition be denied for the removal of the tree. Thank you.
Russell, what kind of tree was it?
It's an arborvitae. It's very much a tree and very popular planted in corners of houses, corners of porches. And this one was quite a specimen. It was 2 stories tall.
I was going to say, this looks like someone is not, I mean, you got to kind of train them and take care of them, or else they're going to grow and do what trees do. They're going to go places they shouldn't go.
Well, in this case, you know, it's growing away from the structure. And that's why it's filling out. You can see on the picture how wide it had gotten at the base. When, you know, that's what you do with these trees when they're in, you trim them a little bit away from your house as they grow, and you let them get that big.
Yeah, and I mean, the house has been vacant for decades.
And that's what I'm saying. If you don't train it, it'll run wild, and it sounds like it ran wild.
Yeah, at this point, it had chewed up, you know, I guess at some point they disconnected the electrical wiring, you know, from the house, from the knob and tube, and so it was all caught up inside of that and forced the wires down into the pillar that it ended up snapping. Like I said, I have photographs to show in my phone if you guys.
I'm going to have to disagree with you slightly about the growing wild. These trees grow so slow.
Okay.
That they can't grow wild. They don't have the time. Imagine a tree sloth. Okay, that's how slow these things grow. It's just been there.
Maybe my choice of words. When I say wild, not necessarily wild, but even a slow grower, it'll grow places you don't want it at some point. But I do understand that.
In a house that had been abandoned for several years, it had its way. I mean, there was no one to even promote it to go in the right
Yeah,
direction.
and the owner, in all honesty, he has shaped the front, but it was the back part of the tree where all those branches started intertwining. You can see the whole pillar is green where the tree had.
So what you're
cocooned.
saying is that this tree had intertwined with the structure, affecting the structure.
Yeah, and I would have never been able to put a porch back even on top of it without removing that tree. So it would
In
have.
some respects, it's sort of like the prior project where, you know, while it was a tree we hated to lose, you don't want to lose the house in its place.
Can't speak to any of that. I did not see the tree while it was standing.
We should have a picture from the original. I don't know if we still have from the original how it was grown. Like I said, it was a cocoon. It was pretty from the front, but when she got behind it, you saw how it intertwined with.
All right.
Is there any more discussion from the board? The chair will entertain a motion.
Thank you. The porch looks good, though. That's going up. Did you guys see?
Your fence looks good.
Thank you.
Your dumpster looks good. All right.
Madam Chair, if I'm being honest, I would have possibly made that same mistake, thinking that is an overgrown bush, although I certainly know what an arborvitae is. But we're basing our decision on whether or not we would allow that, should that have come forth before you cut it down, and I would have voted to remove that, to enable the structure to be maintained and your porch to be built. So I would make a motion that we approve as submitted, with the caveat that you'll work with Mr. Russell Stringer on a replacement species in the next growing season.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor? What? Oh, they don't get extra. All opposed? You're approved.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Y'all have a good evening.
It does not look like we have gained ourselves a Philip Cameron.
Does not look like what?
It does not look like we have a Philip Cameron, but we do need a vice chair.
I would say one of the individuals sitting closest to the chair.
What's her name?
I'm sorry, I left prematurely.
All right, say that again.
I move that Katie be the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Women rule. It's the year of the woman.
We lost our chairman. So they're electing a vice chair.
It's not your project.
Oh, okay.
Apparently it's my project.
Okay. Well, I'll sit up there too, and then I'll give the motion.
So did she just become the vice chair?
Katie's the new vice chair.
She did.
Okay.
Unanimously.
All right. Except because
Meeting
none of
is
the rest of you
adjourned.
wanted it.
Oh,
right?
both were keeping the shed? Oh, okay.
Congratulations.
Sorry.